Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 121 on the 21st of October for Humanity Rising. Humanity Rising is an initiative of Ubiquity University and over 320 partnering organizations from around the world who've come together in the midst of the pandemic we're all undergoing to offer a common ground each day so that people from around the world can come together to share their experiences of what it's like going through this extraordinary rite of passage for the human race that has put most of us under some form of lockdown and social distancing, and to confer as to how we can somehow come together in a way that will make a difference in the post-pandemic world, to ensure that the human future is more sustainable and abundant and resilient and healthy and in alignment with natural systems. I'm very excited today because we had a call earlier with a group of people who've been very faithfully and passionately attending the Humanity Rising sessions. One person in particular, Stan Pokris, who took the initiative and started to convene after session groups so that those of you who are participating and those of you who are presenting can come together and after the session is formally over to just relax, get to know one another, and to discuss how the Humanity Rising community can be helpful as we're now 6 months in. And I would say that the shape-shifting that is beginning to occur for Humanity Rising is that we're shifting from participants to activists, and from a series of sessions to the beginnings of a coalition. We've had people from over 100 countries. We've had over 600 speakers in 121 days from all walks of life, every corner of the globe, every conceivable profession, all focused on how we interpret what's happening through the pandemic and how we can work together to ensure a better world. And one of those initiatives has been, the after session chat group. And so we're going to be more formally connecting the Humanity Rising sessions each day with the after chat session. On the occasional Saturday, we will be having special sessions. And I just want to note that this Saturday, the 28th of October, we have the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. So we're going to have a special session this Saturday, even though we normally go 5 days a week, starting at 5 p.m. Central European time. On Saturday at 5 p.m. CET, we're going to have a special session commemorating the 75th anniversary of the founding of one of the most important and seminal organizations in modern times. And so that'll be this Saturday. And then episodically thereafter, we'll also have what we're going to call deeper dives that will be convened by Stan's after chat group so that we can just begin to build this coalition of activists that are coming together with the single purpose of enabling humanity to rise at this critical hour. It was reported just this morning that the government of Ireland has declared a 6-week lockdown of fairly strict regulations starting very, very shortly as the COVID crisis continues to spiral upwards in Ireland as it is all across Europe. It was reported today also that in the United States, 35 states out of 50 are setting record numbers. And this is happening at the same time as the federal government is starting to cut the number of tests that would indicate the rise of COVID. So we're in a very disconnected reality where some people are taking this seriously. Others, the principal representative of which is the Trump administration, are not. And the world is grappling 6-7 months into the pandemic with how we extricate ourselves. Because the basic contradiction that we're facing, all of us, is that we need to work in order to receive money to live, but the pandemic is forcing us indoors, wearing masks, engaging in social distancing. So going without work with economies that are essentially shut down for 2 or 3 months was okay during the spring. But what does it mean in the fall and the winter as COVID rates continue to rise? What do we do collectively? What do our governments do? What do we do personally as we navigate through these uncharted and increasingly turbulent times? And that's why Humanity Rising is so critically important. We're broadcasting out to 15, 20,000 people as we speak, over 40 live partner channels. We have people that are attending the live Zoom sessions. Everything is recorded and put up on our YouTube channels. We're on Facebook Live. We're on LinkedIn. We're broadcasting Humanity Rising each and every day at a time when the world is increasingly lost in terms of any kind of coherent strategy, even to deal with the pandemic, let alone shape a constructed future. And all within a diminishing time frame for the human race to essentially remember who we are as children of this beautiful Mother Earth. And in the spirit of children at the feet of the mother, radically transform our relationship to ourselves and the larger ecofield. And it's within this context that I'm delighted to convene this session today on the mystery of money. Think about your relationship with money. Think about capitalism and the absolutely rapacious economic system that we have been in for centuries that has essentially been cannibalizing the planet and most of the human community. For what? For more money. It was King Solomon 2,500 years ago that said it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. Is that true? Money dominates most of our lives. And so today, as we move through a pandemic that has challenged many of us in relationship to our capacity to earn money, we thought it would be a good idea to take some time with Louis Bohtlingk from the Netherlands, who now lives outside of Findhorn, who's been contemplating the mystery of money for the last 15 years, writing about it and talking about it and convening workshops around it. So it's a pleasure, Louis, to turn the program over to you on this very important theme of the mystery of money. Thank you all. Louis, are you with us?
Yes, I am with you. I was just waiting for the others to come. Karen? Okay, well, thank you so much, Jim. That is so moving what you share. And I have followed Humanity Rising, and I'm really, really happy that we can make a contribution with something that I phrase as care first. That in many ways is the essence of what I've been working with. And you can also describe it as making the shift from a money first to a care first attitude or world. So we'll take you all more into that space. After I've brought everyone into the space, I will ask the panelists to share about care first for 3 or 4 minutes each. And then we go into a care first round table where we invite all the viewers, all the participants who are not visible on the screen to participate in that conversation and just add your questions and remarks into chat, and we'll try to respond to that as much as you can. But I also want you to know that at the end of the session, I will place links to a questionnaire that I'm inviting anyone who wishes to fill in to share your input to the subject. And that goes together with a document that gives you a lot more information about what we're doing. And it's really my intention, not just to gather the information that you share, but to work with it. So in essence, it is initiating a collaborative effort to create a care first world. So I would like to ask all the panelists and all the viewers, please close your eyes. So just relax your body, relax your heart. Feel the connection with one another wherever we are in this wonderful humanity rising space, where we are dealing with all the difficulties that Jim so passionately shared, and where we are, of course, are aiming to rise, to find the resolutions needed. And in that sense, I'm very happy with the friends on my panel to make our contribution through Care First to this process. So I will share some text with you out of the document that I will give you the link to at the end. And that is to introduce you into a Care First world. A Care First world is a world in which care for the well-being of people and our planet comes first. Money is used to make well-being possible. Everyone can provide for their basic human needs and develop themselves. We care for the earth, who provides us with so much. We experience the earth as a gift we can share with each other. We work with the understanding that we as humanity have the freedom to regulate the flow of money according to our deepest wishes and heart's desire, and that there is no need to accept the mess we are in. That together we can find the clarity to heal the financial world at its heart, and that this is connected to the healing of our own heart. The healing of our own heart will give us the clarity to direct money in this new way. This is fully applicable in business. In paying our employees, we can express our appreciation for the work they have done and for who they are. In paying our suppliers, we can show gratitude for their service and give support and care for their business. When our customers appreciate our business because we provide quality and care for them, they gladly pay us. We can all be happy when fair profits are being made. It adds well-deserved value above cost by which we support our business. When the financial exchanges among people are fair and mutually supportive, it is a win-win situation for all. It is caring and supportive. It is real togetherness and sharing. In order to create a care-first world, I see 4 shifts we can make from one level of experience and consciousness to another. First shift: to move from a place where we try to get and take our piece of the gift towards standing around the gift together and receiving and sharing it. Second shift: to move from ownership to stewardship. Third shift: to move from a use of money based on greed, fear, power, selfishness, and possessiveness, to a use of money based on caring, sharing, loving, giving, and receiving. Fourth shift: to move from a money first to a care first attitude. When we apply care first, when we put care first and let money serve that care. We apply money first when we put money first at the expense of what we care about. I see money first and care first as the 2 aspects of our test with money. In a care-first world, we use money in service of our caring, our values, and our passion. We use it in service of the well-being of ourselves, each other, and the earth. Care first creates a love-based economy. In a money-first world, we use money at the expense of our caring, our values, and our passion. We use it at the expense of the well-being of ourselves, each other, and the earth. Money first creates a fear-based economy. When we look at care first and money first inside of ourselves, we can see that when we live in money first, we're tense, alone, in separation, fearful, and depressed. When we live in care first, we're strong, vibrant, happy, and most of all, in harmony with ourselves. Care first stabilizes the world because it stabilizes our psyche. Care first sustains the world because it sustains us. Money first destabilizes the world and is not sustainable. Can you see what will happen to our world when we move from a money first to a care first attitude? So I invite you all to open up your eyes. So I'm really happy and honored to welcome our panel. We've decided to address 4 questions together. What does care first mean to us? What do we think its application can do to our world as a whole? How can we shift from a money first to a care first world? And what is needed to do this individually, locally, nationally, and internationally? We'll address all this when we start our Care First roundtable. But I would like to give each panelist 3 or 4 minutes to go into the question, what does care first mean to you? And what do you think its application can do to our world as a whole? But share what you want to share and take things where you want to take them. So I'd like to start with my dear friend, Maurice Hoenders from the Netherlands. And you can read the description of his work in the Humanity Rising announcement. So Maurice, can you start?
Yes, thank you, Louis. I'm really happy and honored to be on this session with you all. So what does care first mean to me? In essence, I think care first is an inner attitude, a most natural attitude. I think when we are connected to our hearts, to who we truly are, then care comes naturally. One of my core beliefs that we as human beings, that we are one. In essence, we are one. We are one with all living things, not only with our fellow human beings, but also with the living natural world. And also that our essence is love, and care and love are very much connected in my experience. Care first is also very clear to me. When you make the distinction, Louis, between care first and money first, it's crystal clear to me. So care is about making love visible in my experience. Care first is also about how I deal with myself. 10 years ago, I had a very powerful experience. I was on a transformational leadership program. And it said, like, we can all make a difference through our awareness and through our intention to serve, to come from a care first attitude. We can make a positive contribution to the world. And that vision really spoke to me. And on that program, I became aware of this very critical voice inside myself that said, like, I'm not good enough. You can't do it. You've already tried this. And I began to see that that voice is inside of me, but that's not me. And if I want to live up to my potential and start building and contributing to making a care first world a reality, I needed to stop listening to that voice lesser and start nurturing myself from a care first attitude towards myself. And I think that self-critical voice is based on fear. And I think we all know this voice, and that money first behavior comes from listening to this fear, this voice of fear and scarcity. And what our collective invitation is to start listening to our hearts, that comes from love and from care first. So care first, I think, is about becoming whole, about acknowledging the fear we have inside, which represents this money first attitude, and not to condemn it, but to accept it, to embrace it, to say, like, that's also part of who we are. But coming from a care first attitude means that we are whole. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with us as a collective, and there's nothing wrong with the world. So it's an inner attitude. I think it's an attitude shift from inside. And with care first, it has the great potential, I think, in this time, to restore our true connection to ourselves, our true connection to one another, from this consciousness that we are one. And also we can restore our connection with the earth, the planet that supports and sustains our species. And if we come from this inner space, this inner place, and we step into the world and interact with other people, I am positive, and I'm confident that we can make a care first world a reality.
Thank you so much, Maurice. Karen from Sky Meditation Center in British Columbia. You've been working and assisting people with money and the experience of money for a long, long time. So what would you like to share in your 3-4 minutes?
Care first being an inner attitude. And gosh, money is something that we have in our everyday life. We need it. We need it to survive. We needed to educate ourselves. And but it's a funny thing what we've done with money is it seems more associated with fear and with greed in our lives. I'm from an intentional community, spiritual community in British Columbia. So everything here at Clear Sky has been built through generosity and collaboration and reciprocity. And I wish I could say, oh, it was an easy journey. It was such an easy journey. But through those 15 years of building Clear Sky, I had many conversations with people in the relationship with money. And I would hear many stories again and again of distrust with money. And I had to build a lot of trust with people in the relationship with money. I'd hear a lot of stories of shame. I'd hear a lot of stories of heartbreak, really, of feeling very wrong around money. And so I really had to go back and look at, wow, the last word that came to my mind was care first with money. And I was thinking, what is this relationship that we have with money that causes us to go into really dark places? Mm-hmm. And how do we actually make this relationship with money go from one of fear and greed to one of love? And I realized that I needed to go and work with people on their psychological and emotional relationship with money in order for them to actually even think of the idea of money caring for them, or money being of support to them, or money being of service to them. So at Clear Sky now, we sort of request and invite people to actually do some money coaching, sit down and do some deep reflective work around the relationship with resources, the relationship with money, knowing and looking at the whole world and how we place money in this, or create this culture of money based on scarcity mentality. So, but first and foremost, I think none of us got taught about the emotional, psychological relationship with money. We got taught how to make a cash flow or a budget, or how, you know, I have a degree in economics. I know everything about macroeconomics and microeconomics, but I don't know how to be in relationship with money with other people. You know, where's the integrity of that? How do I actually have a communication about it when I'm holding, you know, if I can take me as an example, if I'm holding, you know, fears and unresolved conflicts around money in my family or in my organization, and it continues. So it's almost like a blood clot that's just been building in accumulation over the years. And then suddenly we've got the pandemic, and suddenly our systems are crashing down. And so what I've seen in my work at Clear Sky as Director of Fund Development, and in my role as money coach, is we have to look at this shadow. We have to look and integrate this shadow of our relationship with money by having open discussions like this. So I'm really excited for Jim and Louis to have given us the opportunity to talk about money and bring it out on the table. So, and the other thing I just want to say about care, a lot of the people that I work with are in caring professions. You know, they're in the medical field, or they're spiritual people, they're spiritual oriented people. They're in the social enterprise world, they're in the social entrepreneur world, and they have great ideas and they want to really help people, and their heart is in the right place. But then the relationship with money, there tends to be very definite patterns around people who are really heart-based, and that there's a dissociation with money. There's me, my work, and then money's over here. That somehow they embrace this money thing, that they're going to be somehow inauthentic to their values. So that's the work. How do you bring money from being a dissociated place in their lives to being integrated as part of who they are, and how they can show up in the world and stand in their power and stand in the capacity of who they are in order to really, truly contribute in a very meaningful way. So what we do, I think, as coming from a place of as a spiritual explorer, is we outsource the power of money to people. I'm going to be a little fierce here, who actually just need to be in the garden doing the weeds and not be in charge of our money in the world. And so that's been my dialogue, is bridging those with heart to actually come in and have that communication and have that direct healing and doing their shadow work around money in order to be able to be of wonderful value to the world, even more powerfully. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Karen. So the workshop Meeting the Mystery of Money was really sort of almost given to us as a pathway to help to shift the things that you're addressing and really bring the heart and money together and be able to act properly. It sounds great, creating a care first world, but how do you actually do it? So I want to invite you, Simon. You have an accountancy background and you're now at Findhorn as the finance manager. So money, heart, and love is around you all the time. So love you to share.
Thank you, Louis, and thank you, Moritz and Karen, for what you've shared as well. I mean, completely concur with what you've said. So for me, when I ask the question, what is a care first world? It's one where there's far greater equality regarding income and resources than currently exists. Where there is obscene inequality, there can never be peace. When we see greed and corruption at the very heart of governments and financial systems, it's easy to get disheartened. How can I challenge or change the status quo? And the place to start is with me. I ask myself, how do I put care first rather than money first in my life? And this requires radical honesty with myself about every choice that I make when it comes to money and the use of it. Do I believe that I own what I have, or do I consider it a gift over which I have stewardship? Do I use money to bless myself and others from a place of love, or do I use money to protect myself out of fear? I've been very fortunate to be the head of finance of 3 spiritual communities. I've always believed the proverb, by their fruits you'll know them, i.e. it's not what someone says that counts, but what they do. My observation is that the wallet is usually the last place to get redeemed or touched by a spiritual journey, because the fear of not having enough is such a primal existentialist fear. Care First invites us to radical honesty about these deepest fears, to bring them into the love and the light of spirit, and to allow that fear to be replaced by love. Another key aspect for me of Care First World is the understanding that we each belong to each other. This requires nothing less than a change in the collective consciousness. It fundamentally challenges our Western individualist way of thinking. COVID is an opportunity, I think, for the greatest shift in collective consciousness, maybe ever in the history of humankind. And there are many signs that this is happening. Coming from a Judeo-Christian background myself, I've always been told that original sin was when Adam ate the apple that Eve gave him, and thus forever pitting man against woman. I would argue, though, that the original sin, or the root of all problems, is pride. It's the pride that says, I'm better than you, I know better than you, I don't need you. It's an easy step from that place of pride to say, I don't care for you. So on a practical level, I feel that when we have a right relationship with money and we are radically honest with ourselves, we can start from that place to challenge our local communities, our local governments and our national governments and the business community, because we speak from a place and we act from a place of authenticity, and people see that. And then I think we can speak with authority. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Bless you, Simon. Well, thank you so much. Patricia, you're in Mexico with your lovely smile and your cat over there. Would you like to take your turn to share with us what your experience is of Care First and what it can do for our planet?
Thank you so much, Louis. And I'm honored to be invited to participate in this panel and with this entire community. So thank you. So first of all, I just want to thank each one of the other panelists for their words. I'm really moved by the authenticity of each of you and what's come from your heart. And I think that is the message about Care First. And I think that is the message that I've expressed and I've endeavored to share with others, you know, in the world about what it means to be in a Care First attention field. So we talk about money, and we talk about money, how we use money, and our relationship with money really is a relationship with what we value. And I'd like to point us actually further inside to the relationship that we have with our own attention. We all share a common intention, and that's why we're on this call together, both panelists and all the attendees. We have a common intention, and I think it resonates with this idea of a Care First world. So what we can do, I believe, about that is to look at our attention, because we talk about paying attention, right? So paying attention really gives us a signal to what we're actually valuing in our moment-to-moment experience. And I was noticing the other day when I was in my community. I am part of a community that delivers food to those in food poverty here in Mexico. And we formed right when the COVID pandemic struck. And there was a concern that my neighbors, people I see out on the street, are not going to have enough food because they live so day to day. And so there was a group of us in the neighborhood who came together, and we just worked with local grocers, and we started to make sure that people had enough food. And so this is just a simple way that we can take an action that comes from within ourselves and within our ability to operate by paying attention, and paying attention to the other people in our world, to our family. You know, once we have identified for ourselves what we care about and have done this work that everyone else on the call has talked about, then, as Simon says, then you can operate with authenticity and power in the world, whether it's in your own family with one another, with generosity and compassion, and making decisions in your own family's relationship to how you're spending your resources, whether it's in the community that you live in. And for me, I work in a very large international development organization that moves billions of dollars out to developing countries. And it's bureaucratic, and it's, you know, there's a lot to be said for it, even though the mission, at the heart of the mission, is Care First. But there are lots of ways that people are caught up in the risk-averse, fear-based, capitalistic form of controlling money as being the first attention. So in my experience, we are the prime movers of Care First. It's how we operate in the world, and organizations and communities, et cetera, all make decisions and policies, and everything they do, they all come from people. They all come from it starts here. It's people who get together who decide what is to be done in every organization, no matter how small, if it's a family, or how large, if it's a multilateral public-private billion-dollar regional development organization. It's people making decisions. So Care First starts inside. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Sarah, Patricia, excuse me. Thank you so much, dear. Yeah, so then I'll just briefly introduce Steve. We met in the year 2000, where I had on a piece of paper, Steve, the 4 shifts that I shared in my introduction. Steve has been working for 30 years in the socially responsible impact investment industry. And yeah, he invited me to speak at an SRI conference in the United States in 2001, at the same moment that 9/11 happened, where I shared about a Care First world vision for the first time. And it was clear that Care First resonated really strongly with you, Steve. And we've been collaborating on that ever since. And I think that we're probably both very happy with anything that any of us can do together to let this Care First consciousness assist it. So I'm honored to give you the floor, Steve.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of this conversation. And as Louis just said, if you hearken back, in my case, 40 years, I've been in the financial services space in one capacity or another. And 30 years ago, I waded into a very shallow pool of early adapters to the radical notion that investors can consciously direct capital in a manner that could help create a better world. But it didn't actually start there for me. It started with a recognition that we live on a planet that is, as far as we know, the most sophisticated solar-powered recycling system in the universe. It supports life, all life. That the economy and the money that sloshes around is a wholly owned subsidiary of the planet. And in fact, that the money that we use well or not so well, that we fear or we don't fear, it's a figment of our imagination. Humanity created this stuff. The systems that we operate in, as that controls the money or that controls our lives, and many of us feel sometimes, is something that we made up, and we can remake it. I think it's important to keep that particular point in mind. If we go back to the planet, we literally all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. In fact, the scientists say that every now and then we'll breathe in some of the same oxygen molecules that Jesus or Mohammed or Gandhi breathed. And interestingly, as COVID has descended upon us, and as we're all learning how to be different and be better, hopefully, COVID has impressed upon us all that our individual health is interdependent with public health. And so it's becoming more and more obvious to more and more people that we are all in this together. Interdependence is perhaps the most important awakening that humanity can experience and is experiencing at this point. High consciousness words like generosity and compassion and collaboration and reciprocity have been mentioned previously. I want to bring a new one into the conversation: empathy. We think about our highest duty as human beings, or perhaps our highest calling as human beings, which is to take care of the planet that supports us all and to take care of each other. It's really all about empathy. And that's where I think Care First, at least for me, Louis, has evolved, at least in my thinking. I got it at the very beginning, 20 years ago. Was like, oh, this is so simple and so powerful and so effective if we could just ground it and use it and create a care first lens through which every resource decision is made as human beings. But I've come to realize that it's both simple and incredibly difficult at the same time because of the fear, because of the scarcity mentality that many of us live in and operate in, and getting people out of that, getting organizations out of that is not easy. And at the same time, just the term care first is so simple and so powerful. I think it has the potential, which is why, of course, I've been on, kind of in a peripheral way in this journey with you for such a long time. I'll pause at this stage and simply say that the opportunity is extraordinary. The challenge is extraordinary. But if you think about those two things with the mother justice blindfold, scale sort of thing, the opportunity dramatically outweighs, in my opinion, the challenge. And I think if we can all come together, everybody on this call and every person that we connect with in life, as our networks overlap and ripple out, if this concept of care first can be brought into and become the lens through which we look at every investment, purchase, resource decision, the world will change, and change in a very positive way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. I built up a Care First Innovation Network that started in 2013. And there were all people who were basically committing themselves to building a care first world. And I've always thought that it was my impression that the deepest wish that we maybe all shared is that care first would become a guideline for all decisions by governments, individuals, and because it can be understood by everybody on whatever level of education, there was always that wish that we could get it around the planet. Now, I received the inspiration for Care First in 1997. And still, really, in all truth, it's been living up in a cloud, helping a lot of people in their personal lives. But as you all will know, it hasn't gone around the planet as a shared consciousness. So I turned 70, 26th of June, and something in me thought, okay, I've had it. We now have to build this care first world for real. So in my terms, golden water is money that flows and is motivated by love and care. Everything that Simon talks about. Is that stuff flowing everywhere or not? And if it's not flowing somewhere, what can we do? Receiving and sharing the gifts of the earth sounds wonderful, but are we doing it? And then another really important element for me to these two is what I call heart intelligent collaboration. That we have a way of working together from a place of deep listening, where we're not in our pride, like Simon said, but in our humility, and can actually let the things that are needed come from our midst. So that's the invitation that I want to put out. I see 93 messages already in chat, and I'd love to see you all on the screen, but just know that that invitation for collaborating and building over something that I think I definitely have felt like you, Karen, it can be a very, very difficult issue for people. At the same time, also not so hard to resolve, that we can collaborate. So at the end of our session, before Jim closes, I will share links in chat to a document that gives you more information and to a questionnaire that I invite you to fill out if you want to. And in that questionnaire, you can give us permission whether you want us to use the information that you are sharing with us in our research. And it is my intention not just to read your information, but to see how much contact we can make. And then maybe this is all strengthened by Jim's proposal that after these sessions, we can go into a space where we all meet each other more. So I just like to open up the space to the panel, maybe for another 10 minutes, to our Care First round table, let's say, and then want to look at the questions and remarks you're placing in chat, and will respond for the last 20-25 minutes to that. So I just want to ask the panel, if you want to bring something in that you want us to deepen out, raise your hand or just open up your mic, and we'll continue for another 10 minutes. And then we have 20 minutes for all the lovely viewers to ask, and we'll go with your questions. Moritz.
I go first, yeah. I want to thank also my fellow panelists for what they shared. It inspired me to have all these thoughts. What came to mind was several of us have talked about the necessity to doing this shadow work, which is very much connected to money, this fear. And I heard some great things that I think could help us deal with this shadow in a very good way. Simon, you said this radical honesty. I think that is so critically important, that we create open and safe spaces to be radically honest, first of all, with ourselves, and to share that. And that requires a vulnerability, which is, it can be uncomfortable, but it can also be very healing in a very beautiful way. And what you said, Steve, about how important empathy is, that's also part of that mix of doing that shadow work. But first of all, I think it starts with us. When I think of Care First, I always think that it starts with self-care first, is how we deal with ourselves, how we treat ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. That's also how we deal and interact with other people. So I think what we all can do is do this inner work first before we start, we go into this world. And that's what you said, Louis, heart intelligent collaboration. I think it requires that we first connect to our own true hearts, move beyond pride and our ego, and start collaborating from that place, beyond that's the place of love and care. I think that could make all the difference.
Yeah, there's one thing, Maurice, I'll just share, and that is, in looking at money for so long, I personally really felt that one of the big issues with money is a really simple fact. And that is that we need to work for it to get it, to make money. And I have seen that is a mechanism that has caused all of us a lot of tension. It's not that we shouldn't work for money, but the fact that we need that money to survive, and that it all becomes an individual effort, is a really important thing to look at. And when I do the workshop, that comes out all the time. So I agree, the inner work is very important, but also really important to see how we reorganize our social economic order, so that care is actually manifested in the way that people take care of themselves. Like what Jim is saying. Now with COVID-19, where is everybody getting their money from to survive? And that is something that I think we need and can reorganize together. Simon?
I just wanted to respond to one of the questions in the chat about how we see Care First and its relation to the natural world. I mean, Moritz picked up on that in his in his talk. So coming from Findhorn, where the three principles of Findhorn are inner listening, co-creation with nature, and work is love in action. You know, the inner listening, those were fairly radical thoughts 60 years ago. Inner listening now is widely accepted, where there is so much acceptance of the importance of mindfulness and meditation. But at least in the West, there's been a big change in that. But the co-creation with nature is was where there was a real listening to and honouring and loving the nature here in the park, and the result was just a transformation of the natural environment. And it comes down to really accepting and understanding that we are absolutely all one. We're not just with one another as human beings, but absolutely intricately part of the same system as our natural world and actually the whole universe. And so care first, if we really understand that, care first radically changes the way that we view our natural environment, so that rather than seeing it as something that we own or possess, that it is a gift, and we are stewards of that gift for future generations. So that, I just wanted my answer to that particular point.
Yeah, the interesting thing, the relationship between the natural world, when the inspiration of care first came to me in 1997, we had a healing center in Scotland, and at some point we were completely penniless. And I was inwardly guided to clear up a whole woodland for 3 days behind the healing center. And I knew that was not going to make me any money. But I was just called, go and do that. I thought, no, that it will never give me money. But as I was doing that, the Care First inspiration came in. And at the end of the 3 days, really listening to my inside, a check arrived. And all the money that we needed was there. Patricia?
I just wanted to address something mentioned in the chat about when we're out in the world, and many of us are like-minded, but when we're out in the world in organizations and situations where people are quite different, how do we operate out there? How do we have an impact? And I would simply say that Care First includes listening to people with very different ideas about things, and maybe things that you don't agree with. It's been a challenge for me because I have cultivated my beliefs, my values, etc., and I work for those. And I'm often in the world of finance and money with people with different opinions. But I go back to being a child and my father at home, and I battled with my father a lot on lots of different things. But one day I asked him about a really personal question about choices he made in his work and why he was working a particular job. And he shared that he didn't actually really like his work, but he cared about raising his 6 children. And he didn't take raises, or he didn't take promotions because it was going to cause him to work more hours outside of the 9 to 5, daily work, and he wanted to be home with us. And that was my first lesson in Care First, because we were tight. There were 6 kids. He needed to have a certain amount of money to support us, and he was working to support us. But then his choice was Care First when it came down to being with his family. And it was the first time that, I guess, when I went back inside and I looked at the choices that we make in our day-to-day lives and how that impacts everything else. And so even though my father and I didn't agree on a lot of things intellectually about many things, most things, when I had this conversation, I could see into his heart, and I saw where many of his choices came from. It really changed things for me. And I think that's really true for many people in the world. We have so much division, especially in the United States right now, polarization. And anyway, I just wanted to offer that.
It's really wonderful, Patricia, what you're touching upon with your father. So anything gets done out of care of course, uh, in that way is a care first action. But when you have a job that you don't like, that makes you unhappy to care for your family, you take a care first and a money first action in my description. Because the definition, the way that I define money first, it's any action with love, with money, that goes at the expense of our well-being. So if work doesn't make you happy, that's a money first manifestation, and it is an incredibly widespread pain. So many people are trying to live their fullest passion and receive the money for that, but find themselves in a world where they feel that that situation hasn't opened up. So a lot of people end up working for money because they need it. And I have seen that so often as something that we really need to address.
So Louis, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in here. Having spent many years as an investment advisor working with people, and I certainly never referred to people's baggage, money baggage, as a shadow, but I do think that that is an accurate description. But Karen, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you in terms of how you deal with that. How do you deal with your money coaching stuff, and how do you help people open up and embrace that radical honesty that Simon mentioned earlier? How do you help people kind of get beyond the baggage? And when I say baggage, for me, it's kind of like a ball and chain kind of thing for a lot of people, really holding them back, holding them down, and they feel the weight of it. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you help them kind of, remove that.
Sure, thanks, Steve. The good news is I really agree with Louis that once what Patricia said about paying attention, once you pay attention, you bring your attention to the subject, it can clear up very quickly. That's the good news. But I think the aim is, one of the things is courage, right? It takes a tremendous amount of courage to face this, because we're built on patterns from a very young age, pre-5. And a lot of those patterns are there to protect the hurt that basically me and mom are not the same. Mom is other. And so our whole personality, if you look at Winnicott's work, is all about that, right? And so we use money as a protection. First of all, as survival, as Louis mentioned, and as a protection. And we build these fortresses around us with money, right? So part of the work that I do is unpacking that and disentangling that from the original hurt. Now, how do I do that? Well, I'll go back to the family system and see how you were built around money, looking at your main caregivers. So Louis talks about a care first world. That's where it all began, was your original relationship with mom. And so in some ways, your relationship with money is your relationship to the heart and is your relationship to mom, right? And so if you look at how money is in the world, it's based on an extractive model. And what do we do with our mothers? We take from mom, right? Until we become, and so we should, we're children, and so we should, but then it comes to a place where we need to give back to mom. We need to contribute and stand up and become our own adult. So unless we kind of face and look at some of those patterns, and I don't mean going into the, getting all negative about it. It's just seeing yourselves as patterns and looking at how are you actually built around this thing called money? Where did you learn your ability? Where did you learn the what's the reasons for hoarding it? Why do you have to have a certain amount in the bank account to feel okay? Why is it that And no matter how much is in your bank account, you still don't feel okay. Like, what are the patterns behind that? And usually when you go deeper and deeper and deeper, the person gets to see that a lot of it is based on 4 big fears, which is fear of abandonment, fear of annihilation, fear of being evil. That's a big one among spiritual explorers and people who want to do good in the world. And so it's really having the courage to face that. And so all I do is, I'm a great space holder. I'll provide that space for people to actually, like, people are talking about listening here, but people can get to the deepest, most painful parts of their being by others creating a space, a holding space where people feel really, really seen and really, really heard, right? And so sometimes I think with money, it's used for such a way of protecting the ego and breaking that down, and then realizing, oh my gosh, this is how I am with money, and I can actually change my patterns and practice them. Like, we do go into strategies and looking at how do you develop generosity in your life, and all the spiritual traditions throughout the whole wide world. That's the first doorway in to an open heart, to a world of care, is opening the heart, is true a practice of generosity. And you can do that with money, but how do you create a culture of generosity in your own heart, but also in your families, in your organizations, and in your business? So we would look at that. But it's hand holding, going into the shadow, sitting down, go, okay, just let's see how you are built around money. Does that help, Steve? Is that going where you wanted it to go?
Oh, yes. Thank you for that.
Right.
Piggyback on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Karen, this is wonderful. And of course, I hadn't even heard about all your work. I think we have another 10 minutes before I need to close it. So with all the wonderful message in the chat, I think I would like to copy that and have it all with me and see in what way I can assist responding to these questions, which of course we can't do now. What moves me in what you're saying, Karen, is that with meeting the mystery of money, I hope I've created that space of safety where they can really go to where those pains and those survival energies sit. So I agree with you that love and support for people is really important. And what I see happening in the workshop is that the deepest, most beautiful, powerful parts of people start to come up, so that they feel they can take much more charge of their relationship to money, personally, but also in relationship to our planet. So again, I'd just like to open up the space to anyone wanting to respond to things that have been placed, the questions of the participants, for the next 7 minutes. Does any of us want to respond to anything that the viewers asked?
This isn't a direct response to any of the excellent questions. In fact, some of these questions are so big and so deep, I almost hesitate to even attempt to respond to them in the time that we have left. But there is a question that hasn't been asked, and that is, what can people do practically to begin to change their relationship with money and to begin to change the impact that we all have with our purchase and investment decisions? And I think that there's an important, very simple, very practical way to apply care first. As an investor, think about the stuff you're investing in. and what impact those companies or those enterprises are having on the world, and make an informed, consciously informed and intentionally informed decision up front. And that's what the sustainable, responsible, impact, ESG investment world is. And I threw out a number of different terms just to make sure that everybody kind of gets it. A lot of people will say, and I suspect there are people on this call who say, I don't have enough money to be an investor. Well, each and every one of us use a bank. Each and every one of us use a credit card. Who's behind that bank? What kind of impact is that bank having on the world? Who's behind that credit card? What kind of impact are they having on the world? There's very practical ways to think about and to use a care first lens in day-to-day relationship and decision making around every purchase, every investment, every resource decision. So I would just throw that in as additional food for thought.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. There's another thing that's maybe nice to bring in, and that is something that emerged when we started Meeting the Mystery of Money in 2004. And we came up with a term called self-care first. So in a joking way, I started talking about angel disease, that a lot of us have really loving, giving hearts, and within 5 seconds, we are there for the other. But to bring that same love and care towards ourselves can almost be like a blind spot. And what I have seen in practice, when people come to me and they talk about difficulties they have with their financial flow, it will very often sit in the self-care first arena. That you need to look at yourself and really give that love and care towards yourself. I know that that also was something that was speaking to you, Karen, being this lovely money coach and helping everybody else. But what was the care for you? And I think that is a really important thing. And maybe it actually is an angelic ailment. I'm just throwing that out there. Patricia?
So I wanted to just ask a question, actually a question that I think it's what I call a living question. And that is, what is enough? I think so few, I mean, that's really the essence of what's going on in the world, because, I'm here in Mexico, I'm dealing with food poverty, and we call it food poverty specifically because the people that we are caring for are not impoverished. Their hearts are full. There's music in the streets. I'm always, blown away by the huge smiles and the embrace of life here in this culture. But they have food poverty. And the opportunity that's happened with this that I've witnessed is the expats or the foreigners who have come together with locals to volunteer together to try to address this together, to support one another. It's given an opportunity for everyone to share and to look at what is enough. And so one short story is there's a family that is very poor, and they make food. They just put tables outside their house on the street and serve food, tacos or things to anyone who comes by. And that's how they make a living. And when the pandemic first hit and there was a quarantine, of course, no one was out buying tacos. And so they needed some help, and they received a despensa. But within a month, or as soon after people were allowed on the street again, as soon as they had just enough, they refused dispensas, or they made sure that their neighbors, other people that they knew, would get the food. And these people, live in very, very poor conditions compared to what we have. But they were very, very clear within themselves about what is enough. So it's really, to me, that's a living question that I live with every day. And that's where I try to, answer that question for myself, and, how I'm operating in my life. So I'm just inviting that.
It's so beautiful what you're sharing, Patricia, because in Meeting the Mystery of Money, we ask a question on the Friday evening, have you ever felt any anger towards the money system or the way we use money in the world? And what always comes out is the inequality. The fact that the food in the home and the education and the healthcare simply isn't there for everyone. So this whole space is so important. I will now do a few practical things. So I will put something in chat that is here. For all viewers. So what you see here, the link isn't working in chat. I'll do something else and then I'll tell you what we can do about this. Just one moment.
Oh yeah, I see the links. Looks like they would work, but you can certainly copy and paste the links into your browser.
Oh, they work. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just do one more thing. That's this here. I will screen share and then talk about the links.
Steve, do you also mean the Care First Roundtable link and the Building a Care First World link together? Because I don't think
that's what I mean.
It's just text. It's not a link, I think.
That's what I thought. So what you have here, the question form Care First Roundtable that I placed in chat and the document Building a Care First World. This is here now on screen share so that people who can't see, haven't joined this live recording can see the links afterwards. When you go to this one, this article on our website, I saw somebody also asking, is there a website? Our website is carefirstworldwideweb.com. There's an article there, Building a Care First World. When you open that article up, you can find the live links to a Care First Roundtable. That is the questionnaire in Google form, and the document Building a Care First World that you can read and probably also download. If you want to contact us, go to carefirstworld.com about contact. We Worldwide is a new initiative that Maurice and I and a few others have taken, and that is a platform where we are activating individual and collective heart intelligence and heart intelligent collaboration. So I'll stop the share here.
Maybe you can share the link that was in the document just now of the Care First World.
I will do that.
You can put that in chat.
I'll do that, Maurice. That is the link to the article. Here in chat. Oh, and it comes up as a link. So when you click on that, you find everything.
Now, Louis, there's something important. You share with just the panelists, and now it is you need to when you share, there's like this blue thing, and you can do panelists and attendees. Then everybody can see it.
Right.
Yeah, so that is for everyone. So in that article, you'll find the links. You can contact us. It is on the website where you can find out more. So I'm so grateful that we're doing this together. And I mean, even the 6 of us, we all didn't, not everyone knew everybody else. We've all done Meeting the Mystery of Money. We've all been in the cooker. And I do feel though that when we opened up this vision, this heart-based approach to money and finance in the 90s, so many people loved it, but how do we make it real? And in my life, the process of Meeting the Mystery of Money, which is an online workshop that I do now, I used to do it offline, but now online with COVID-19 with 6 or 7 people, is a really powerful space to make the shift from money first to care first, personally in a really deep manner. The same as everything that Karen is sharing about what you're doing. And yes, so I just want to thank everybody. And maybe, shall we ask all panelists, maybe say something to all the lovely people that we can't see?
Blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your attention.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here and listening to us.
Onward and upward.
Love to meet you all.
Thank you
Findhorn,
very much.
we can all come to Findhorn. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we're closing, Jim.
Thank you so much, Louis, and all of you. It's been a very rich conversation, really about a change of consciousness. I mean, you made me think of Einstein right away, that the consciousness that produced the problem can't solve it. If you're spending your life pursuing money, it's hard to think of another world being even conceivable, let alone possible. You need a new consciousness, and you've embodied that in a very lively way. And I would like to just make one comment on what you said, Patricia, in your last remarks, you know, about what is enough. I think that's really at the root of the question that all of us have to ask about money. And I think when we ask that question in a sincere way, there's no other conclusion but caring for one another in a authentic fashion. And it reminded me of the story, the very famous story of Henry Ford. You remember Henry Ford became one of the richest men in America in the early 20th century when he developed the assembly line to produce the Model T Fords. And he was unbelievably rich. And one day a journalist asked him the question, so Mr. Ford, how much is enough? And he smiled and he said, $1 more. And I think that strikes to the heart of the toxicity of modern day capitalism. And I think it's worth remembering that it wasn't really until the 1970s actually, with the report of the Club of Rome. Remember the report of the Club of Rome, Limits to Growth, which sent shockwaves all around the world, that there was a group of scientists and policymakers that were asserting that we're not in a world of endless progress. We can't extract endless resources from the earth, that there are limits to growth. And that book by the Club of Rome really began the contemporary conversation that Patricia indicated. What is enough? And it was out of the Club of Rome that really the notion of sustainability began to emerge, that again, we're not here for an everlasting progression of bigger and bigger gross domestic product and more cars and more refrigerators, but actually we have to start living sustainably. And it wasn't until, 1992 in the conference at Rio de Janeiro was the first time that the world came together and discussed sustainability. And President George Bush Sr. At the time did not attend because he rather flippantly said, the United States of America doesn't do sustainability. And yet the world continued to evolve. And out of sustainability came the Sustainable Development Goals that were finally embraced by the United Nations and the world community in 2015. And here we are in 2020. at a moment when our greed literally has brought us to the brink of annihilation. There's not a single millimeter of planet Earth that hasn't been despoiled in some way, touched in some way by human encroachment. Since 1970, just to indicate one data point, since 1970, 68% of all the animals, fish, and birds on Earth have disappeared. We only have 30% of the animals, fish, and birds that we had 50 years ago. Why? Money. So this conversation, everyone, around how we shift the very gestalt within which we live around money might be, in the end, the most fundamental shift humanity must make. That right at the moment when the socialists, the communists, anybody that was challenging the capitalist notion of free market, unlimited growth, endless progress, has now conquered the world and is now destroying the world. The question of our relationship with money and how we shift, and I think, Louis, you've put it brilliantly in your simplicity. It's to move from money first to caring first. And if we can just do that, we will be well served. And Louis, if you want to make a comment, please do right before we close.
I would like to, so I want to thank you, Jim, from the depth of my heart. I mean, what you just said, I think, yeah, I feel that. I've been watching so many videos around the climate change emergency on a climate change emergency summit from the Global Eco Village Network. And I thought, okay, what can I do? And I thought, Louis, just do your money first and care first thing, because if we can redirect that money in a better way, I know all that. But when you went to that enough, I was literally moved to tears. And I think that question around what is enough for each of us individually should be practiced, because then your too much goes to someone else. There is enough for all of us. And that we don't have, that all of us don't have enough is the greatest pain that I see in meeting the mystery of money. Not the personal issues that people have. What hurts people the most is that we are not there for each other. So bless you and thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I was just going to close on that note that in the end, everyone, this isn't about taking on the big system of global capitalism or global governance. It's about understanding that every choice we make either contributes to the problem or contributes to the solution. And I had a conversation yesterday with Ian Kepler, who's one of the participants of Humanity Rising. And he said what he does as a practice when he's going to make a choice, he asks his granddaughter to the 7th generation, should I do this or not? And if she says it's okay, then he does it. And if she says it isn't, he doesn't. And he quit a very lucrative job at Shell Oil Company by communing with his granddaughter in the 7th generation. So these are huge issues, and we're running out of time. I just want to note that we have our after chat session now, Louis, so that if whoever Stan or Leslie can put the link to the after session up, that would be good. And then tomorrow, we will turn to a creative genius, David Pearl, who started out as an opera singer and then had a passion, just like you, Louis, around the caring economy and reevaluating our relationship to money. But for David Pearl, it was around developing an art form called street wisdom, where he just went into the streets of urban areas and got people in a city block to derive the wisdom that was in the city. It's not from Socrates or Pythagoras or Aristotle that wisdom comes in modern day reality. It's from the streets of our urban centers, David Pearl discovered. So we're going to do an exercise tomorrow around street wisdom with David Pearl and a woman, Esperide Ananas from Italy, from the Damanhur community. Thank you, everyone. The chat link has just been put up for the chat people. So we welcome all of you panelists to now join the after session where we can go into more discussion and dialogue. Louis, Steve, Mauritius, Simon, Karen, Patricia, I salute you. A vast subject you brought alive and challenged us all to live more authentically and to choose more wisely. Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 o'clock p.m. Central European Time on Humanity Rising. Bye-bye.